Thanks, Lauren. The Vermont Sheriff's Association is calling for the immediate resignation of Franklin County Sheriff John Grismore. Now, this comes less than a week after Grismore was decertified by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. And Grismore also had the chance to testify in front of that impeachment committee for the first time today, and he maintained that what he did was necessary. Now, Sheriff Anderson added that he thinks Grismore's actions have resulted in an overall lack of confidence in law enforcement throughout the state. But Grismore did note that he was elected after the information of last summer's incident was already in the eye of the public. Now, it's unlikely that the committee's investigation will conclude before the upcoming legislative session starts, but we'll continue to keep you updated on this process. For now, live in Montpelier, Isabel Schonemann, ABC 22 News. In a hearing Friday afternoon for 48-year-old Jason Eaton, we learned more about a potential timeline as the parties move toward a trial. At the same time, dozens of people wearing keffiyehs flooded the courtroom to stand in solidarity with the 3 Palestinian-American students who were shot last November. Now, Yance added that cases involving an attempted murder charge usually take around 2 years to get to trial, but she says she remains optimistic that Jason Eaton could face a jury by January or February. Finally, some closure for the family of Yogaswari Khadka, as Ida Gurung is sentenced to about 21 years in prison. Last fall, a jury found Gurung guilty of his wife's murder. Authorities say he used a meat cleaver in that attack, also in the injury of his mother-in-law, Talasa Ramal. Now, Gurung's sentencing was scheduled for the last 2 days, coming down to emotional victim impact statements and an in-depth argument by Judge John Pacht before handing Gurung his sentence. That's 27 years served for the murder of his wife and 20 years to serve for the attempted second-degree murder of his mother-in-law. Those sentences will be served concurrently, subtracting the 6 years he has already been in custody. Gurung was also given a lengthy list of conditions, including orders not to consume alcohol. He must take his prescribed medications for his mental illness, and he must not have any contact with Yogaswari Khadka's family, including with his daughter. The judge also saying Gurung must seek a structured living environment upon his release. Attorney General Charity Clark released a statement about this case saying, quote, Yogaswari was a brave, hardworking mother who immigrated to the United States in hopes of building a brighter future for her family. I want all the victims of domestic violence to know you are not alone, end quote. Now, to the state's dismay, Gurung is not required to complete counseling on issues of domestic violence, and the state wanted to make sure that Yogaswari Khadka's memory is not forgotten. Prosecutors saying she was a victim of horrific domestic abuse. I'll have more details on this case and today's sentencing in our late newscast tonight. But for now, live in Burlington, Isabel Schonemann, ABC 22 News. It was the biggest rescue operation police in Killington have seen in a long time. The police chief tells me the cold mixed with the amount of people made for a tough rescue. But in the end, I'm told it was a successful operation. Rescue teams remind people to dress well for the cold conditions, stay on designated trails, and be familiar with any backcountry area if that's where you choose to ski and ride. Staff at the Boquet Valley Central School District Lakeview campus say the building is quite literally crumbling, with ceiling tiles falling and lead in the drinking water. And teachers hope voters will approve Proposition 1, which would give the green light to a new building. It's a new era at the airport tonight as it's officially renamed the Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport. Vermont leaders stood by as the building was dedicated to the former senator himself, but not without a flashy and themed big reveal first. Yes, Lauren, that final hour of voting was very busy. In fact, there were still some people entering the parking lot up until about 5 minutes before 7 o'clock. And as you mentioned, the people in line prior to 7 still get to vote. We did just look inside a couple minutes ago, and there was still a line pretty much to the door. So thankfully, everyone in line still gets to vote. But now getting to that Burlington ballot, it's looking a little different this year. And there's a lot of topics of note on the ballot, including the public safety tax increase. Now, voters will decide whether or not if there should be a 3-cent increase to the tax. Now, earlier today, we caught up with some Burlington voters who told us about their public safety concerns. As Burlington goes through some leadership changes, some residents hope a number of safety issues are addressed. One resident looked to a rise in crime, hoping he sees some change. Now, we still have some time until results start to come in. We'll be watching how Burlington voters decide on a number of city ballot items, including that public safety tax increase, as well as a number of statewide issues. Now, I'll have more on all town meeting day ballots throughout the state on those results in our late newscast tonight. But for now, live in Burlington, Isabel Schonemann, ABC 22 News.
How busy were the polls? I know it was raining tonight, but between 5:30 and 7 o'clock is when a lot of people were getting home from work and wanted to vote.
Hey, well, the rain didn't stop anyone. There were still tons of people outside holding campaign signs. I got there around 5:15 and it was completely packed. Cars were filling the parking lot, and there was a line almost to the door for people to go vote. And people were in and out. I was told by the officials there that the A through K last name category was the largest, most people lining up there. And even just a few minutes before 6:55-ish, there were still people pulling into the parking lot and still rushing in to cast their votes. But I understand that people who got there prior to 7, who got in line prior to 7, were still able to cast their votes. So I don't know how late the voting actually went over in Ward 5, but there were a ton of people still voting past 7 o'clock.
Lauren, Haley, the anticipation is just really ramping up right now. Everyone is so excited. As we were saying earlier, lots of cheers, lots of hollering. Everyone is really getting excited for this eclipse.
Isabel, I can't get over the fact that we went from looking like high noon to looking like 5 or 6 p.m. in a span of about 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe even less than that. But I just looked up just maybe a minute ago through my eclipse glasses. I'm trying not to glance up at the sun without the glasses on.
Very tempting.
It is tempting. It's like second nature. I just did it. But it was a very sliver of a sun when I looked at it just a couple of minutes ago. We are getting so excited up here.
Isabel, I know we were hearing the fans' excitement. What about yours? What are you looking forward to?
I mean, we've been gearing up for this for over a year now. We were saying earlier that a year ago today, we were doing stories that the eclipse was just 1 year out, and now we're finally here. It almost doesn't feel real. And what was it like to have, all these cheers, all these whoops in the background during your wedding?
It was incredible. We were skiing on the mountain yesterday for some wedding photos. Everyone at Jay is so nice, so enthusiastic, so happy to help us out and cheer us on. So it's been amazing.
This day, continue, yeah.
I was going to say, so we did run up to the summit right when we got here to do some photos, and there was obviously a huge crowd waiting to see the eclipse, and everyone up there was so excited and supportive to move out of our way and let us take some photos. And
we were not expecting that. It's been so wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but you have stars and moons on your dress as well.
Yes, I picked a very dramatic, non-traditional dress, but I think it reflects the moment really accurately.
And the turnout at that peak was absolutely amazing. We heard that there were about 400, give or take, tickets sold, but that was just people going up the tram. We were talking to people all day who were hiking up the mountain. Some of them started hiking at dawn, so there were a lot of people. But back down at this base lodge, there was also a huge party going on here. When we got back, we talked to a staff person who told us it was popping at this base lodge. From lights to dark and then quickly to light again. It was just an amazing experience overall. At that peak, we had nearly a 360 view, so it was just amazing up there. But hey, we got to catch up with some people after totality. This is what they had to say. And most everybody up there had skis, had snowboards with them, so everyone was pretty quick to get back on their equipment and go down the mountain that way. Emergency crews are just now letting us take a closer look at that crashed propane tanker in the Black River in Irisburg. As you can see, the flames behind me are still burning very high, and the fire chief says they're now letting the gas burn off. Long days and nights for fire and emergency crews, keeping an eye on the flames around the clock. A propane tanker crashed into the river around 6:40 Monday morning, engulfing the bridge in flames.
We figure there's about 7,000 gallons of liquid in there right now. It started out at 10,000.
Irisburg Fire Chief Robin Beaton says crews are letting the gas burn in order to empty the tank to make it safe to get the truck out of the water. The worry, once the flames go out, the integrity of the bridge.
The bridge beams we're finding that 3 of them are bent, assorted, so we have a pretty good feeling that the bridge is no good now.
Meanwhile, Haley Shelifo and her family, who live across the street from the crash site, are still displaced, now staying in a hotel. Shelifo tells me her mom was the first to call 911 as she woke up to the noise of the crash.
My bedroom window faces the bridge, and then there was a huge explosion, which honestly is something that you would only really think about hearing in a movie.
She says that morning felt surreal.
I look out my window and I say, oh my God, the bridge is on fire. That's all you could see. Flames were coming underneath the bridge, over top the bridge.
Shelifo says she didn't have time to think about grabbing any belongings. Her family of 6 raced to evacuate, while Shelifo tried to find out if the driver was okay.
I threw on my boots. I actually went out in exactly what I'm wearing right now. I still haven't been able to change. And I just ran out and then I started yelling, hello, is anyone there? Can you hear me? You know, because the driver was our #1 priority, trying to see if they were okay, which at the time we didn't know if he even made it out.
Thankfully, the driver, 44-year-old Casey McQuaid, made it out safely. Now, Shelifo and her family are worried about the condition of their house. She says the power went out and she doesn't know if the pipes will freeze.
We can't go home. We have a guinea pig that's actually at home right now, so we're hoping that he's going to be okay.
Chief Beaton says the risk of further explosions has diminished and fire crews will stay in the area for the next few days, saying everything should be, quote, back to normal by the end of the week. The fire chief says it could take another 1 to 2 days for the propane to burn off and the flames to go out. Meanwhile, crews are working on getting a temporary bridge installed to allow for 1 lane of traffic. In Irisburg, Isabel Schonemann, ABC 22 News. Yeah, Lauren, I learned Kayla Wright loved spending time with the people she was closest with, including her friend and former roommate, Sarah Davis. She tells me Kayla was a people person and brought happiness to so many. Friends and family honoring 29-year-old Kayla Wright's memory in the days after her tragic death.
She was so sweet when it came down to it. She really cared about her family so much, which is why we knew something was wrong so quickly.
Sarah Davis, a close friend of Wright's, tells me they met when Wright moved to Big Sky, Montana. Davis says they bonded through trauma, helped each other get out of bad relationships, and moved on together as roommates.
Everyone kind of referred to us as a duo because of the fact we never went out without the other person.
Davis tells me the pair would protect each other.
Kayla, her favorite thing to call me was Bunny. Because she said I always reminded her of all the energy that I had when it came to being around her.
Davis says Wright would always lend a hand to a friend and kept in touch with her family despite living far away.
She was more of a people person more than anything. She loved FaceTiming with her family. She was constantly on the phone with her family.
She says Wright had some struggles with substance use, but still showcased her strong personality and her love of her friends and family.
She was so headstrong in the way that, like, she just had such an attitude. And I love it. A lot of people will try to say certain things, you know, she had a problem, and yes, like, she had her problems, but I don't want those problems to overshadow, like, her.
Davis added Kayla cared about the people she was close to and wants her to be remembered in a positive light. Flooding off the highways in Waterbury is preventing many people from getting where they need to be in town. We've seen multiple drivers come down this road in front of me, stop, turn around when they see these floodwaters right behind me. We've also been noticing people in canoes, kayaks, even stand-up paddle boards on these waters throughout the day. But some good news, the water levels are going down. Just a few hours ago, you can see this car stuck in the water right behind me. Just a few hours ago, that water level was up to this car's roof. Now it's down to under the taillights, so that's some good news. And as these floodwaters recede, the town center is starting to reopen, allowing people to find refuge in the drier parts of town. The sun made an appearance Tuesday in Waterbury, and people checked out the flood damage. The roundabout at Route 100 and US 2 was partly blocked off, with half the circle underwater.
I was amazed coming down this morning and seeing that at the roundabout it was blocked up because of the flood.
Vermont Emergency Management tells us there was a high-risk rescue that took place right here Monday night. A team from New Hampshire rescued a mom and an infant from their car after it went around barriers and got stuck in the flood. And Maxwell Morado says the water has risen substantially.
Before we could see the lights of the car last night, and now the car's just like almost disappeared. It's pretty crazy, and like it's amazing how much the water has risen in like overnight.
Meanwhile, Brittany Dion says she's thankful she and her family got out of their house when they did.
We're lucky and had my parents who live outside of town to be able to evacuate and go to them. Me and my husband dropped our kids off last night, but we took several trips and we're loading stuff from the basement, moving it to the second story of our house to save as much family heirloom stuff as we possibly could.
Dion was here during Tropical Storm Irene and saw the devastation it left behind.
So now to be in it, it's scary, and I can't imagine, and keep praying that everything will be okay.
While the water levels here in Waterbury are going down, there's still concern of more rain and the status of the Wrightsville Dam. Reporting live in Waterbury, I'm Isabel Schonemann.